All right. I am so happy and thrilled for you all to meet my next guest, Elizabeth King of Elizabeth King Coaching. She is an international intuitive life coach helping patients on a global level. And she is certified as a fertility health coach and educator, an ICF certified life coach. She is the CEO and founder of Fertility Coach Academy, the host of the Creation Innovation podcast, and she is also a Psych K facilitator. She specializes in fertility, pregnancy, and motherhood coaching, helping over hundreds of women get pregnant and even helping them to become certified fertility coaches. So, welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thanks for
Uh,
having me. I'm excited
yes,
to be here.
it's my pleasure. You've been on my list, and I'm so glad that the timing worked out for us to get together. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became or what started this journey into life coaching and fertility coaching for you.
Yeah, so kind of two separate things. My passion and mission with fertility and women's health started in 1994, end of 19 December 1994 when my sister was diagnosed with a rare cervical cancer and was basically said you have to have a radical hysterectomy in 2 days. And
Mhm.
she was 26 and I was 19, and her all she could focus on was I didn't really mean that I didn't want to ever have kids. She had just gotten married 6 months before that. And
Mm.
when people were asking them, when are you guys going to have kids? She would say, oh, we're just going to have fur babies and whatever, basically to get people to stop asking the question. And my first thought, I get goosebumps every time I remember, is I'll have a baby for you. Like it just wasn't even a
Oh.
thing. It was just a nut. That's what will happen. And of course, we were more concerned about her surviving this. And still to this day, she's in the medical journals of gynecological oncology because no one has survived. She has survived, and it's now 30 years, which is crazy to think. But that was really my intro. I didn't know what a cervix was. It was, how important women's health was, whether you were pregnant or not. And she was just going in for a routine refill for her birth control pill at that time, actually. And come to
Mm.
find out, it was this very rare form of cancer. Um, so that led us to, talking about ovaries and freezing, or not freezing hers, but they kept her ovaries in hopes that maybe they would survive all of the things. I knew even then, without knowing much, that they wouldn't, just based on what she was going through. But it started this whole journey. It was the first time that we talked to Dr. Werlin, who is a local guy in Orange County area. I shouldn't say guy; he's a reproductive endocrinologist here, and that kind of started the fertility journey. And then fast forward on my own path was seeing Dr. Werlin at age 30 when I got a divorce to say I want to freeze my eggs. And at that time, the technology was different. He said, come back later. I went back at 36, still single, and we did a egg retrieval then. When I was also going through that divorce, my then husband and I had gone through 3 years of marriage counseling. And I remember him saying, this feels like divorce therapy rather than marriage therapy. And I was like,
Mhm.
that's interesting. He's kind of right that, they're not really giving us tools and things to do in order to bring us together. It's really just kind of a, a vent session, so to speak. Not that we were venting about anything in particular, but like, how are you feeling about this and whatever. It was not productive. And we'd seen multiple different therapists during that time to try to really make it work. And I met at that time a life coach. And this was again in 2007, 2008, where there was no such thing as a life coach. It was the first one I'd ever met. It was like a unicorn. Like, what is that? Tell me more.
Right.
I had gone through therapy as a child for different things, and I always felt like they just didn't understand me, and I didn't really feel like it was helping. I could have been talking to a friend instead of spending this money with this person, type of thing. And the way that coaching was initially explained to me was, we focus on the future. What is it that you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? Rather than focusing on the past and telling the story over and over again and living in that story. And that felt very appealing to me. I'm very action oriented. Tell me how to do something and give me the tools, and I will do that. And I ended up doing my ICF certification in 2008. And that's when I really started helping women, primarily at that time, just through their mental health and what was going on in their life day to day. And then coupled with my own fertility journey starting at age 39, 40, um, then after my first loss is when I really said, this is when I need to focus my life coaching into fertility coaching. And again, at that time, there was no such thing as fertility coaching. Still, people are uneducated about what that even means. And it differs between coach to coach. So what I would always say, take that time to meet with somebody before you invest your time and money with them, because you want to know, is that something that aligns with you? And they're going to be part of your fertility team. So you want to make sure that, you are aligned on all the things.
Well, that's an amazing story, and talk about sister love and support.
Yeah.
I mean, I just that story sent shivers through me too, just thinking about that. And I have one sister myself, so I think I would have responded the same way
Yeah.
as you
And
did.
I'm, we're going through some medical stuff with her now again, and, been going back to doctor's appointments with her and stuff. And I feel so fortunate that I can be there as her advocate. Not that she's not capable, but,
Mhm.
it's always good to have somebody with you. And of course, at the last appointment went, she was like, mad, why are you here? I told you I don't need anybody here. And then by then she's like, thanks for coming.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's what I thought, right?
Well, a second set of ears, I think when you're going through any type of medical process or
Agree.
procedure is so helpful because you don't always
Agree.
catch everything on
Right.
your own.
Right. And some people are more, what's the word? Assertive with, challenging questions, and I think than others,
Mhm.
to put it
Yeah,
nicely.
yes. And you do have to navigate through the process, right?
Yes.
Whether
Right.
it's through fertility or any kind of health
Right.
situation.
Right.
There are so many questions I want to ask you, but I wanted to start off by asking, what is something that you are proud of in your practice and in your business? Because I love your entrepreneurial spirit, and you and I have known each other, gosh, probably only 2 years, but I feel like I've known you forever.
I know. I know.
Definitely connected in past lives. But just would love to hear about, your practice passion and what you're proud of.
I mean, it's an interesting question because I feel like that people don't ask that very often, right? But one thing that I always say, and I say to the FCA, the Fertility Coach Academy students, is there's nothing better, and you know this too, when you get those calls of "I'm pregnant," or you get the pictures of the ultrasounds, or the 1 year old birthday party, or whatever.
Mhm.
Like those moments, to be part of that journey, you do feel so proud. You feel like you are just alongside them in that path to parenthood, and no matter what way that is. And
Mhm.
that's super exciting. And the other thing I'm really proud of is being able to help other people to help other people. This domino effect, this amazing wave of spreading the word and educating people on fertility, and why the mental health aspect along with the medical side is so important in on this journey, and how much more successful you are if you can get that support and health with your mental well-being at the same time.
For sure. Well, I love the way you address the emotional, mental, spiritual aspects of infertility, and that this is such a big part of what you help your patients with.
Mhm.
Would you be able to tell us a little bit about the treatments that you offer that helps to focus on the mental, spiritual aspect of the journey for your patients?
Yeah, so I call it the creation continuum. We're trying to create a human life. And so we want to focus on all things creating as well. And so part of that is there's 4 steps we talk about. We talk about the feminine energy, the mindset, the wellness, and the medical. And when I say the medical, it's not that I'm pushing people to, Western medicine, but I do want people to get the lay of the land. I want people to make sure that structurally everything is okay. I've seen way too many people come to me 3 years after trying naturally, only to know they have blocked tubes or
Mhm.
a uterus that has something going on. So I always say, see a reproductive endocrinologist, a fertility doctor. That doesn't mean you need to do IVF. It just means you want a specialist to look at what's there and know that everything is working as it should. We look through the blood work to see, is there any red flags? Is your thyroid level good? Is your vitamin D where it needs to be? What else is happening that could essentially show us right off the bat, like, oh, you might want to go back to your doctor and have them check this? Were your blood your hormone panels done on day 2 or day 3 of your cycle. Most OBs that are testing hormones don't tell them to get the blood work done on day 2 or day 3, and it's really important that patients are getting the blood work done at that time, and to keep that as your baseline. So every time you do your blood work, I'm the same way. I'm not having children anymore, but I still have them run my hormone panels on day 2 or day 3 of my period, so that I am comparing apples to apples each time. The feminine energy is such a huge part of trying to conceive and what we talk about. And that kind of combines in with the mindset and the spiritual aspect as well. We kind of go back to nature and living and trying to make it a practice of being feminine energy, because where most of us live on our day to day, we are living quite masculine, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. I was
Mhm.
definitely somebody that was like, I'm not doing that. Well, of course I was. I was single till I was 40. I was doing all the things myself. I was paying my bills. I was, taking my trash out. All the things, and a business owner, and that's common for most people, whether they're in a relationship or not. It's just the way of the world we live in. So making femininity a practice to whatever degree you feel comfortable with basically shows your your being, your aura, everything that you're ready to receive in, again, whatever way that looks for you. That may be conceiving naturally, that may be conceiving through ART, or whichever way. And then the mindset, which is a huge part of it. That's where we really get into the down and dirty work of really working through subconscious blocks. There may be something that you're not even aware of that's blocking you from conceiving. There may be something that your partner's energy is blocking. So we work through a practice modality called Psych K, which is similar to what EFT might be like, or hypnosis. It's emotional technique therapy, essentially. But we don't have to get into those. Generally, you have to go through, EFT, you have to revisit whatever is the pain and be aware of that in order to work through it, so to speak. With Psych K, it's not. We really just know, I feel this way. I'd rather feel that way. Or if you're working through a traumatic situation, we can do some balances for that. So there's a lot of different avenues that we go through. And then finally, something that I've started to talk about recently, and I hadn't really talked about for most of my practice, was this connection with spirit babies. And part of that reason that I hadn't talked about it was because I felt like, oh, it's one of those things that it's a belief. You either believe in it or you don't. And I realized, though, the healing that came from these messages that I was getting, or these downloads from people's spirit babies when we would be having a session, was so healing that I needed to start talking about that more and letting people know that this may or may not come up for you when we're having a session. But in fact, as I'm talking about that right now, I getting what for me I know is kind of starting to come in for that, is that it's this collective of spirit babies, so to speak, has always been with me. And now it's more and more, I'm actually talking about it publicly, that this is what happens during a session. So,
I love that you are bringing more awareness to this, because I think
yeah.
it's a topic that has been talked about for many years, and I know that we had spoken about Walter Makichen's book,
Yes.
Spirit Babies, that was written like decades ago, and he's no longer around. And when I had seen your newsletter talking about spirit babies, I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if it was an affiliation to Walter's practices or not, but I think it's just so cool how you kind of fell upon it yourself, and that these spirit babies find you. And I
Yes.
think that they reach out to you knowing that you're this conduit of communication with their future parents.
Yeah,
And
I always
so
say, though, I I do know people that are spirit baby readers. So I always
mhm,
like preface that with, I would not consider myself a spirit baby reader, as far as a whole hour is not going to be dedicated to getting downloads from your spirit baby. And part of that I've come to also learn is, because they haven't had that life in a 3D world, so to speak, there isn't as much content. If you were to go to a medium who does talk to spirits on the other side who can tell you about their life and their experience with you and all these things. So it is kind of shorter aspects of what comes through. But if you are looking for a spirit baby reader, we know lots of them that we can refer to. But really, this is more of kind of downloads that maybe last 10 to 15 minutes of information that will be interrupted in our session of what might need to be communicated. And maybe that's validation that there is nothing physically wrong with you. Or I've had messages about where somebody's living and that spirit doesn't necessarily want to come into the energy of where they're living, and lots of different things. But and a lot of times their personalities, which is really fun to see and hear that come through too. So
Well, thanks for sharing that and clarifying it. I think that even being able to connect with spirit babies in whatever fashion is so powerful.
yes,
And
I'm honored. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't, it wasn't that I had read his book. I was saying to Dr. Yang before we gone on to record that I wasn't even aware of the book until a client had said to me, "Oh my gosh, this is just like this book, Spirit Babies." And I didn't know that that was a thing. And they sent me the book to read, which I have yet to read. But apparently, a lot of the information is very similar of what's talked about.
that's amazing. Well, there is no mistake in the
Yes,
process of these babies finding you.
right.
I am
Yes.
convinced of that.
Me too. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask a little bit more about your sessions.
Mhm.
Actually, I should probably back up and ask the very simple, basic question that I should have asked you in the very
Mhm.
beginning,
Sure.
which is what is a fertility coach?
So again, that fertility coach depends on each person individually. So there's a lot of fertility coaches out there that have gone through their own journey and are now helping somebody with theirs, and they're considering themselves a fertility coach, and that's great. That's, you know, what we do is we have, and anyone who's come through the Fertility Coach Academy, we have a bigger umbrella to learn about, literally from the inception of the egg and the sperm and the cell growth between those, and why things may happen the way that they do, what we can do to affect the expression of the genes in order to make it better so you can prime your eggs and your sperm to have that healthy baby. And then again, where most of the meat comes through in the sessions is the mental work. So we get a lot of people, unfortunately, that have been trying for many years and are quite frustrated and discouraged, who really just need to have some direction and some validation that they're not going crazy, and that they need to find that hope. And we're here to be that beacon of hope, and also to give them some solid things to do. And when I say solid things to do, it's, let's look at your supplements. Most people are over supplementing themselves, quite honestly. They
Mhm.
read online, here's the fertility list of what I should be taking, and they take all the things. And so we go through and we muscle test. Is this good for you? Is this something that you need to be taken? We also go through food sensitivity tests to make sure that they're not causing inflammation in their body by eating anything specifically. So we do go through certain aspects of saying, yes, we need to do this. No, we don't need to do this. We bring their fertility team together. We find acupuncturists, chiropractors, anybody that can help support their journey, um, reproductive endocrinologists, anyone who's there that can really be on their team and support them in the effort of becoming parents. And that looks different for everybody, because in some cases, they may need to go down the road of donor conception. So we help them. Really, first step on that is get their head around the fact that somebody just told them they need to use a donor. That's
Mm.
usually not something anybody ever expects to be told, and or surrogate or anything for, along those lines. So everybody's different. Everybody's session is different. A lot of people are dealing with stress in their environment, whether that's with a work situation or family situation. I hope not with a relationship partnership, because that is one of the main ways that you will not get pregnant, if that spirit baby knows that's not a good situation to come into.
Mhm.
Um, so we work through all of those things. And I tell people it's not a long-term situation. If we're coaching together for years and years and years, then we're doing something wrong. We want to make sure that you're getting to a point where you know the tools that work for you. Is it meditation? Is it journaling? Is it coloring? Is it going for a walk? Is it changing it up every day? There's no pressure and set direction for any one person. We really find what is going to be the tipping point for you to say, ooh, it's cooking. That's where I get my creative outlet. That's where I feel less stressed. That's where I balance my nervous system. And again, that looks different for everybody. So the sessions really do kind of take on a whole wave of its own depending on who it is that you're working with.
I love that your style of coaching is very comprehensive and customized, which is a very similar approach to our practice style. So
Right.
I love that we're in alignment that
Yes.
way. And
Yes.
you guys are looking at supplements and lab testing, and so as well as the emotional aspect. So it's a really great combination
Right.
of physical, emotional, spiritual all together,
Right.
which we can't ignore like one aspect because we're not looking at the whole picture for our
100%.
patients.
100%. And you're
Yeah.
just reminding me, we have a mutual patient who I remember even saying at times, you should go back and ask Dr. Yang if she can help you with this or that, right? So there's sometimes where you're working with a client and they're not even aware of what it is they should be asking or what is they should be doing necessarily, and or open to different things, right? With this particular patient that we share is very open to lots of things, and so that opens the door for expansion. And she's, I don't even know how far along she is now.
She's
Maybe,
definitely in her second trimester, in the
yeah,
mid
well into,
mid
I
second
think, right?
trimester. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. You would never
So
tell by looking at her, but
of course, yes, she's beautiful.
she's
But
adorable.
it ranges for everybody. Everybody's different. And I think that the bottom line is being open to, this is a period of time. It will not last forever. Who can I have to support me and lift me up during this time? Because we all think, oh, I got this. I can do it by myself. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I don't got this. I need help, and you don't even know what kind of help that you need. So find a coach, see if you resonate with them. And if you're not aligned with them, find somebody else, or talk to a
Mhm.
friend. There's so many amazing people out there that are willing and honored to help you on your fertility journey.
Well, something you had said earlier about addressing the feminine,
Hmm.
and I think that that response of "I got this," I don't, I can handle this on my own is kind of more of a what we say yang energy
Mm,
or male energy of like I'm independent, I'm strong, I got this, I can do it, I can plow through anything.
right.
And I think it's very prominent in our culture right now, but it's okay to be vulnerable, I think, through this process. And as a
Hmm.
woman to say, I, I need to lean on some people.
Yeah. And the one of the biggest things I see in success is when they let go, right? People are holding on so tight to all the things when they get to me, and probably to you too.
Hmm.
And this really desperation. And I understand, I was there at some point, and you're just like so desperate and holding on to it so tightly. But as soon as they start to let go, whether that's a diet, they're obsessed with eating gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, whatever, and they're making themselves insane because they're eating this way, but really they don't have any food sensitivities to any of those things, right? Or, you know, I don't know. I can list a million things and I won't go into that, but really it's just, how do I calm my nervous system? What does that look like for you? Because it's different for everybody. But when you start to relax and let go, that feminine energy starts to flow. And
Hmm.
it really is an energetic flow. And I always say, look outside your window and you'll see nature happening. They're not holding on tight to anything. They're running around up the trees, down, here, there, and everywhere, and just doing their thing. And how can you get back to you and back centered so you can feel like you're just doing your thing? You know the aspects that you can work on and what's in your control, and you're doing that, but everything else you're starting to let go a little bit more at a time. And that's when the magic starts to happen.
I love that. I can think of like a half a dozen patients already that I want to send to you, just listening to you talk about, your coaching style. And I guess that my next question I was going to ask is, this is a good segue in, is What can patients expect during a session? And are your sessions virtual or in person or a combination?
Most of my sessions are virtual because that's, well, for many reasons. And that's very different than when it was prior to COVID. And I would literally go to people's doctor's appointments with them. And that was helpful, very helpful in a lot of cases. But now we kind of do the prep before they go and do it in that form virtually instead. And again, this session looks different for everybody. And I think really what you want to go away from with any session, with anybody for that matter, if you're paying for a service, you want to walk away feeling good. You want to walk away from that hour or 50 minutes or whatever it is, being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I just spent my time and had this connection with this person. Right. And I mean, you and I both know in the different circles, we kind of run in the same type of circles when you walk away from a session that you have from somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I feel so good about that. Even my sessions with you, Dr. Yang, on the crystal table and all the things, it just fills me up so much that that's what you want to walk away with when you're working with a coach, and especially in your fertility, because there are so many things that you feel are working against you. And again, you feel that way because of the thoughts that you're telling yourself. The thoughts create the feeling, and the feeling creates the action and inaction, and then the result. And so we want to work on, most of the time, the thoughts that we're having.
Hmm.
So we work through this formula, so to speak, of what are the thoughts that you're telling yourself? Is it about your age? Is it about the time you've been trying? Is it about your relationship? Is it about your work? Et cetera, et cetera. And if we just look at the thoughts that we're having, what is that creating for us in our lives? And as soon as we change the thought, that thought will change the feeling. It's much easier to go about life feeling lighter, feeling happier, feeling not so, you know, like you have no hope in the situation,
Right.
right? And who can help you get there? Because
Hmm.
oftentimes it's hard to get yourself there when you're at that point. And that's where a coach that you feel good about should get you to that point of like, okay, I have an awareness of my thought. That thought is not helpful. That
Right.
thought's creating a feeling that's not serving me. How
Hmm.
can I change that thought before you go down this road? And soon enough, you'll realize that maybe you get bad news, but you don't stay in that place of depression or sadness as long as you had before. Or maybe your period starts, but you're not feeling as hopeless
Hmm.
for the next month. You catch yourself and it becomes a practice of, okay, oh my gosh, I am feeling a little bit better than I did last week because these practices and tools are working for me.
I think that check and balance process, that you're mentioning, or I see it as a check and
Yes,
balance system where you're kind of like, okay, I'm gonna check in, but I need to keep myself balanced and be
for sure.
aware of the thoughts that I'm having and, and not go down that rabbit hole. I think that's huge for patients.
Yes. And
And
I think we're not saying that everything's always rainbows and unicorns. It's not. We
mhm,
wouldn't know what happiness is if we didn't know what pain was, right?
that's
So
right.
there's always
That's
going to
right.
be the 50-50. There's
Mhm,
always going to be both sides, the yin and yang. There's always going to
mhm.
be all of it. And so it's really how do we deal with, how do we show how we're working through the human experience the best we can possible.
That's perfect. Perfect for patients to know that. And I think that, you know, when you're going through the journey, I think that there's like this checklist, right? And people are just checking off the list and going, okay,
Yes.
I did this, I did this, I did that. I'm
Hmm.
following the perfect diet, I'm taking the perfect supplements. And then when you receive disappointing news, for example, like your FSH is still high, your antral
Hmm.
follicle count is still low, but you've been supplementing for 3 months and you're
Right.
taking a gang load of CoQ10, and
Yes.
yet still there's no change. I think that can kind of segue into this not destructive behavior, but destructive thought process sometimes with patients. And I
Yeah.
think patients can get into this rebellious phase where they're like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to
Right.
stop everything. I'm going to stop my diet. And I always tell patients, take a vitamin vacation,
Hmm.
take a break. It's okay.
Right.
If you need to pause for a second and like regroup, you absolutely deserve to do that because you have been regimented for so long.
Agree.
And it's just, boys, and I'm sure you see this too. I mean, for these women, it's almost like training for a marathon. Everything is so regimented. It's
Right. It's exhausting,
restrictive. It is. It's a full-time job looking at the
literally.
lifestyle and I commend these women for doing it because it takes a lot of discipline.
It does. With, like you said, a lot of times you don't get the direct result, right? This is why I say for men, it's a lot easier because they can do a sperm analysis pretty easily to say,
Mhm.
okay, I did this and now this is happening. We can't see how our eggs are reacting to acupuncture, to supplements, to herbs, whatever, right? We can get ideas based on how our body is showing up for us, but
Mhm.
we don't really get the
It's not as
exact,
concrete.
it is not as
You might
concrete.
have
It's
some
not as
hormone levels you can
quantitative.
test, right,
Right.
and some imaging, but it's not a guarantee of quality.
Right. And so that's again where the mindset comes in of really believing and trusting your body, trusting that whatever it is that you're taking, your body's doing what it's meant to do, and or leaning into your intuitive side. Maybe
Mhm.
you aren't supposed to be taking CoQ10, even though it's on the list for everybody,
Right,
right?
right.
And figuring out who can help you work through that. Maybe it's muscle testing against it to say, is this healthy for me? I always use myself as an example with the food. I'm very sensitive to eggs and to fish. On the fertility diets, both of those are high on the list for
Mhm.
things.
Oh, yeah.
So, you want to make sure what's right for your body versus just taking a sweep of a guess at, okay, I'm going to take this because it says it online. And I love your point about taking a break, also taking a break from online things,
Mhm.
because once you see or read something, you can't undo that. That is now programmed in your brain. We don't want to compare ourselves to Susie Hugh and what her story is because you're you and your story is going to be different. And that's why you need to work with somebody to find what's going to work for you and your body and your mindset and your mental well-being as you're on this journey.
Amen.
Yes.
So for your clients and your patients, are your sessions usually one-on-one or are they group sessions?
They are one-on-one. I do host group sessions about twice a month, and I do them through other avenues, not my own. So I guest host, so to speak, for other companies as hosting their groups. But most of the where we see the biggest work, I would say, is on the one-on-ones. And the reason that I see that is because we really get into what's happening in their life. A lot of
Mhm.
times people think, well, it's not really relevant to me for me to talk about my work. Well, of course it is. How many hours do you spend working? That affects your nervous system. Your nervous
Mhm.
system affects your reproductive system. Everything is intertwined in this. So we really want to make sure that we touch on everything and figure out how that works. Yesterday with a client I was talking about communication with their family and her getting some pushback on living a more organic lifestyle and choosing better foods for herself, whereas her parents are like, we never ate organic and we're fine and this and that. And how do you deal with that? Because for her it was causing her a lot of stress in over time to be able to say, here's all the supplements that I think my body needs and et cetera, et cetera. So we deal with all different aspects that may not seem directly related to fertility, but it does, in fact, indirectly affect your fertility.
I love that because you can't isolate different aspects of your life because it's all tied together and it all
Right.
impacts your health and your well-being.
Yes,
And your cortisol levels are a big part of what's going to drive your other hormones. So if you have a lot of stress hormones that are dominating, it's well, and you know this, Elizabeth, is going to steal from the other areas, whether it's your thyroid or your reproductive hormones. So I love that you
for
address
sure.
all of that personal, home life as well as work life and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing we want is for cortisol levels to be pumping through your system and then you
Mhm.
get pregnant and your baby's getting all that stress hormone from you, right? I mean, I know we get stressed about being stressed when we're trying to get pregnant, and that's where again a coach will come into play to help you through that mental process to keep those cortisol levels down and your nervous system in check so that when you are pregnant, you have the nice yummy blood that's going through them and not the stressful kind that we don't want to give them.
Right. And this will lead to a nice, calm and happy
Yes,
baby
yes,
that'll
yes,
sleep
yes,
well and thrive.
yes.
So, for women that have gone through their own fertility journey and they want to share their experiences and their knowledge with others, how can they learn more about becoming a fertility coach? And I know that you have a whole academy and training around that. Just wanted to learn a little bit more about the classes you offer and the certification
Yeah, thanks for
program. I
asking.
think it's a certification program.
Yep. It is a certification program, meaning we do actually have you go through practice hours and taking an assessment test and other aspects that we kind of do checks and balances to make sure that you feel good about doing that and that you have a comprehensive, curated knowledge to go out and help somebody in that. The program is also certified by the AADP, the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. So, which basically means you're able to, once you've done our certification, you're able to get the accreditation from the AADP as well. And really, we look at it again from a holistic perspective. So, we talk about all the different ways that people can get pregnant. We talk about ART, the reproductive technology, which some people basically know as IVF, but there's a lot of different aspects to
Hmm.
that we talk about. Um, it's for anybody who may have gone through the journey or hasn't gone through the journey, but is very passionate about women's health. And somebody who loves to help people get pregnant and be on that journey with them to again help people to understand the cycle. What does it mean to have foods that support the estrogen and progesterone at different times of the month and things like that? I mean, we also talk about how to start a business. It's one thing to be certified, but then how do you actually go out and get clients and what does that look like? So there's different aspects of the course in order to have them be set up for success. And really the success is so that they can go on to help other people in their fertility journey and more people don't feel alone on the path and they know, okay, I'm, like people have a business coach or a personal trainer or coaches for everything. The same thing here with fertility. And some people think, well, what does that even mean? Am I like, are they going to tell me when to have sex or not have sex? No, but it does help to know your ovulation and maybe you don't have cervical mucus and that's an indication that your hormones are off. And so somebody can help you ask the questions to guide you in the right direction of what that's going to be. And we learn all of those things in FCA um, once you're going through the program.
That's incredible. It's like a coaching class for a fertility coach.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I think everyone can use some entrepreneurial coaching. And, it's a whole nother world, I think, when you're running your own business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think
Mhm.
people, who've gone through it, who want to help other people, it's coaching itself. How do you hold that sacred space for people? How do you know when to, as we call it, not get in the pool with them, but also let them
Mhm.
know that you understand them? Because there is a reason that therapists generally keep a boundary with their patients because they that's what they're taught to do, right?
Mhm.
In
Right.
coaching, there's a very fine line because, especially in fertility, in my opinion, is it's helpful to know that somebody understands that you get what it's like to get your blood work done every other day. You understand what it's like to be so disappointed when your period starts every month. Um, so there's that sort of connection that you don't feel alone, but you also know how to hold that space for someone to get them through to the other side and know those techniques to say, okay, here's the thought that we're having that's not helpful. That thought's creating this feeling. That feeling is creating this action or maybe inaction, what you're not doing. And that then is creating this result. How is that result working for you? Not so good. So, how could we change
Mhm.
that thought that's going to create a different result because of the different feeling that you're going to have each day? So, it's really learning the different techniques in order to help somebody help someone else.
That's wonderful. So as far as patients and clients, when they want to get a hold of you to learn more about your one-on-one coaching or even your fertility coaching academy, what's the best way for them to find you? Is there a way for them to connect, maybe like a discovery call or something like that, where they can kind of have a meet and greet with you
Y-
virtually?
Yes, we do discovery calls. And I think that that's a great way to again get that feeling of, is this, does this feel right for me,
Hmm.
right? I always say it's a relationship. We're both talking the same, we want to be on the same page. We want to have the same philosophies. We want to know that this is going to both help your end result of having that baby at the end of it. So take the time to do that and meet with people, whether it's me or somebody else, because anybody who says that they don't have the time for that, I would say you're investing your time and energy. And if it's a 15 or 30-minute call, it'll be worth it.
Mhm. Well, thank you for offering that to your clients and future patients because I think that that's such a such a needed thing to bridge the connection so that you know if it's a good fit and know if you are in alignment and if I think picking a fertility coach, just like picking an RE, you want to make sure that it's the right fit and that the practice matches what you're looking for.
For sure.
So, I
I
think that's
agree.
great to offer the discovery calls. And then as far as the coaching, the fertility coaching, how do folks get started with you in that program?
For FCA. So there's on elizabethking.com, there's a tab for the Fertility Coach Academy. We refer to it as FCA. I've said a couple times without
Mhm.
defining that. I apologize. And there you fill out an application and we ask a few questions and you then meet with someone on our team. And once that kind of goes through the process, then you and I meet, or whoever that person would meet for us together. It's an online course, so you can do it at your own speed. I have people that have been doing it for years and people that do it
Mhm.
in 7 weeks. So
Mhm.
it all
Wow, that's
depends on
fast.
what they're doing. And also there's different layers to it. So again, if you feel like you need more of the business aspect, then we spend more time on the business plan and marketing strategy and things like that. If you feel you're uncertain more on the actual science of it, we spend more time on that aspect of it. So we really tailor that even to what it is that you need specifically. We used to do more group sessions with FCA, but we realized that because everybody's individual needs and wants are different with what their intention is with starting this business, we really started to focus and narrow that down more because some people are just doing it for volunteer work and don't really need to make money at it. Some people,
Mhm.
are contributing to their household and need to have that as a stream of income. So
Right.
we really try to help in whatever way we can for you to be successful as a coach.
So even the FCA is a customizable program. That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
So the discovery calls for patients, would they be able to just connect with you through there and schedule the appointment through your website?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. And I'm going to put that all in the show notes.
Yes.
So I have
Thank
a
you.
few more
Yes,
questions. Thank you
please
for all
ask
your
away.
time. Do
Yes.
you have any upcoming events or workshops that you'll be holding that you'd like to share with us?
We do. So we're now talking in June, and I think in August we're going to be doing a special for fertility over 40. So that was kind of my story. And I always thought, I'd be helping more people that were over 40. And ironically, a lot of people that have come throughout the time have ranged from mid 20s to
Mhm.
I have a client now that's just turned 50 in June. So we're going to specialize on an event for fertility over 40. I had 3 babies naturally over 40, 41,
Incredible.
42, and
That's
almost 44.
amazing.
And so I really do believe that it's possible, and it's just a matter of again priming our bodies and giving it the love and attention in all the ways, mind, body, and spirit that it needs to do what it's meant to do. Again, pending any specific structural issues or other underlying things, which is why I always say again, go to your fertility doctor and get the lay of the land of everything before you venture down a natural fertility path. Um, and that's happening in August, this fertility over 40. And then in September, we're launching the FCA again. So that's where we're going to be doing a big launch of back to school for everyone to kind of go back to school and start learning about becoming a fertility coach and having a big event around that.
Nice. Now that the
Yes.
summer plans are wrapped up. You can
Yes,
dive back into studying.
exactly.
So for the Fertility Over 40 workshop, is that a virtual workshop? Is it like a series or is it just a one-day event?
So we're going to do what we're calling it as a party. So basically just
Nice.
like a Q&A, fun, no slides, just kind of off the cuff, get your questions answered sort of thing. And then we're going to have it be a virtual course, so to speak, that you can go through and learn. If there's anything additional that we didn't cover in that party, then you can go in and dive deeper into that.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's a virtual Zoom party.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, last question,
Hmm.
I think. What advice do you have for women that are on their path to motherhood? Is there anything, words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Reach out for help. Talk to somebody about whatever's going on. Now, even if you're just starting and you have no issue, talk to somebody about it. There's so many nuances that we're not taught in school or that the the women that went before us haven't spoken about, right? So start to
Mhm.
open up that conversation and just say to somebody, hey, guess what? We started trying to get pregnant. And what advice do you have for me? Right? There's going to be some advice that is not going to be helpful and other advice that may be super helpful, but really just be open and curious to what might come your way. I think that's the best advice I can give. Also, for talking with somebody, again, like an acupuncturist or a coach or somebody that can be part of your team, even if it's just a one meeting for them to help guide you on your inflammation on your body to bring that down, eating what you need to be eating for your specific body, supplements and herbs that are for you specifically, and what it might be to help you strengthen your system in priming for your pregnancy.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your time and for sharing all of your knowledge. Knowledge is power. So I think that this podcast is going to give our listeners a lot to digest and think about. But I think that the message is definitely check out a fertility coach. And if you haven't already, it's worthwhile to look into it because no one should be navigating the fertility process by themselves. I mean, even
No,
though you have a partner, I mean, I think as a couple by yourselves.
right. And I will speak for my situation with my husband. He would always say, he's amazing and would do the best he can, but he doesn't know what to say to me when I'm upset because my period started or upset
Mhm.
because, we went to the doctor and there's not as many follicles that we thought there would be or whatever. He's just doing the best he can, right? So speaking to somebody who understands the language and understands what the process is can help guide you through it, help give advice on the relationship. There's definitely a lot of stress that goes
Mhm.
on a relationship through the process too. I mean, having sex on a schedule is stressful and
Mhm.
finances get stressful if you are doing ART, et cetera. So there's definitely a lot of things that somebody externally can help go through with you. And it definitely helps to know that somebody has been down that road and can speak the language with you and walk the path while you're on it.
Well, I'm excited to be collaborating with you. And
Yes,
we already have had a
always.
couple of patients together, and they speak so highly of you, Elizabeth. And I know that we will have many future patients that we'll be treating together. So I look
Yes.
forward to that. All
Me
right. Thank
too.
thank you again for your time, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Dr. Yang.
You're welcome.